because it's an interesting subject matter. Okay, next up, we are going to have uh, Dr. Dave Feeney. And Dave, are you? It looks like you got your screen up, and I'm going to read a little bit about you. And you should be, this technology is being good to us, be able to be a presenter, so you could start sharing if you wanted to. Dr. David R. Feeney is an education activist for behavior analysis delivered electronically, e-haviorism. David has championed online education since before the World Wide Web existed. I haven't called it that in a while, with full-time positions managing digital education degree programs at Temple University, Seton Hall University, I've been there, Strayer University, and more. David earned a master's and doctorate in education integrating e-learning, innovation diffusion, and behavior analysis from West Virginia University with Julie Skinner Vargas, daughter of B.F. Skinner. In 1997, David's first publication was a book chapter about smoking control education delivered 100% online. That was in 1997. David is a licensed behavior specialist in Pennsylvania, where he works providing services to families with autism both in person and via telehealth. David is the parent of a 23-year-old son with autism. David is a native Hoosier, having lived and worked in Indiana, West Virginia, Manhattan, NYC, but calls Bucks County, Pennsylvania, his home. So we're going to hear about this very timely topic, e-haviorism. Dr. David R. Feeney. David?
Thanks, Tim. Can you hear me? Thumbs up. Presenters,
yes,
if you're on video,
I can hear you.
Thumbs up. You can hear me well and easily? Good. You know what, guys? I'm super bummed. You know why? Because the presenter who went before me was really, really great. Okay, and not that I didn't expect that they would be, but that was a compelling story woven into very high quality presentation of behavior analysis, background, history, data, references, etc. And God, try to follow that. So great job, folks. Great job. You're going to make me look. It's going to be an invidious comparison. Tim, I do have a couple questions, and frankly, I'm okay with using some of my time for questions. We were taught as educational behaviorologists, you see, as educational behaviorologists, we were taught that audience engagement is absolutely key. So, Tim, I see everyone on the call should presumably be able to see the chat, and I've invited everyone to text me their questions live to my cell phone, which I can see on one of my screens in front of me. Okay, is everybody seeing the PowerPoint set of slides? Yes? Okay, good, because it's a little sometimes it's a little difficult to figure out what I'm seeing versus what the audience is seeing. So Tim, other presenters, etc., I'm counting on people seeing the e-haviorism slides. And what I value more than just presenting stuff. And folks, presenters, please confirm for me, as I scroll down, you can see that I'm scrolling down. Is that correct, presenters? And presenters, I'm assuming you're speaking for the entire audience. But it seems we have a pretty small audience today. Not that that's bad. In fact, from an educational behaviorology perspective, that's quite good. But I haven't really heard from them very much. And Tim, I'm wondering, can everyone on the call use the chat while I'm sharing the screen?
Yes, everyone is able to chat.
But I can't see the
I've
chat.
reissued your contact information.
Okay.
So they can contact you, or they can chat.
It appears I don't know if I can see the chat, so I don't know if I can see questions coming in, but if questions come in to my text, or if questions come into Tim,
if you
I
want,
would really like to have questions during my talk, because I consider audience engagement to be a key point, a key part of being effective. So I've checked that this works, and that's going on. Well, e-haviorism.
okay.
Real quick, of all the presenters and all the audience, who has ever heard that term before? Please raise your hand. No hands raised. I'm not seeing anyone in the audience. If anyone in the chat has ever heard that term before, well, good, because I made it up. And I've sort of had a little bit of a non-traditional career in behavior analysis. Full disclosure, I'm not a BCBA. Don't intend to be one at this point at my age. I am what I would call an evangelical behavior analyst. I have read B.F. Skinner, okay, and the variety of literature, and that is my commitment to the process. Yes, I was a member of Association for Behavior Analysis International for a long time, and still enjoy the company of behavior analysts. In fact, my boss is on the call. How many people's boss is on the call? No one? Okay, mine is Joe Cotilli. So I've got to watch what I say. E-haviorism is my name for delivering a demonstrably, measurably effective behavior analytic interaction with zero face-to-face in vivo presence. Please raise your hand or use the chat or signal if anyone has done that, either of the presenters or in the audience. Okay, I don't see anybody. I probably should say, raise your hand if you haven't done it. If you have not done an applied behavior analysis intervention remotely, 100% online. If you have not done it, speakers, raise your hand. One? Okay, so, sir, you haven't done it? All right. So I think I'll just lecture because the contingencies of being engaging is a little difficult. I can't quite see what people are saying and doing. Tim, please jump in if there's any question or any response from the audience via chat. Okay, and the audience should know that they can visually indicate using the tools.
I'll dive in.
Thumbs up, thumbs down, etc. Guys, I really want to pursue engagement. Sometimes these tools don't work all that well. Here's what I wanted to do. And presenters, please confirm you see this chart full screen. You do not see it full screen, or kind of half and half.
What I see.
Yeah,
I see I see it where there's like a scroll mark. There it is. There's full screen. Got it.
Okay. And I have it on a different monitor. This is the complexity. Do people see it? Can people legibly read this?
The words in yellow are a little hard to see.
Okay, I can interpret, but can the behavior analysts, who are far more accomplished than myself, interpret this for me? Dr. Weinberg, what the hell's going on in this chart? Give it a shot.
I have to unmute.
Yes.
But we have some different conditions here going on. What they are, I have no idea. But we have several different conditions, and some are showing lower rates of the dependent measure, whatever that may be. It's cigarette smoking, so we have lower rates and higher rates of cigarette smoking as a function of different conditions.
That's right.
You know.
So, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of Dr. Weinberg's associate. I apologize.
Bill.
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 Yes, sir.
I can describe the conditions, but there's phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Bill, do you see where there was a reversal to higher rates in phase 3? Can you see that
Absolutely.
well
Yeah,
enough?
you had an immediate level change and a trend change.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for helping me narrate this for the audience, Bill. You can see that this is cigarette smoke per day, and some of the highest rates are 42, 40, 41 cigarettes a day.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, that's a
So
lot.
I know that this is a little small. I'm not quite sure how to make it any larger here. Is that more legible for folks at all?
there you go.
Bill, is that
That's
more
good.
legible for you to read?
Yeah, yeah, that is right there. The
That's more
words in the
legible.
yellow are.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, what I want to get across is this seems to be okay behavior analytic style charting to show a measurable behavior changing across phases, including a startup, aka baseline phase, phases 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Seem reasonable, Bill?
It does. It's
Okay.
definitely yeah. They
The most
definitely are well.
important. Go ahead, Bill. I'm sorry.
I'm saying, yeah, they're definitely well segregated, and you do get a noticeable change in trend level and variability on phase 3 coming into that.
Yeah, and so to narrate a bit, one of the big bang takeaway fact from this is that this was done with no face-to-face contact whatsoever, and this was done in 1998. Okay,
That's
so
pretty
this is
significant.
online. This is what I called at that time LMOD, lifestyle modification. And in 1995, 96, 97, up through and including 98, at which point I became a full-time online program manager at Temple University, helping design the Fox Online MBA and other programs ranked #1 by U.S. News and World Report. Um, this was a hobby, a behavior analytic hobby that I made into a small business. I'm curious, um, in phase 3, what happened was the learner's computer crashed. Okay, in every phase up until phase 3, okay, the learner was counting their number of cigarettes per day. Does that make sense to the speakers? Okay, they were reporting it to me
Yeah.
using America Online, and that means by email and instant message. Remember America Online, guys? Remember that trip down memory lane? It's
You
still with
got
us.
mail.
I think it's still there.
With us. And they were reporting their rate of cigarette smoking, and that was essentially the basis of every single phase. Phase 1, from startup to phase 1, baseline phase, was simple counting and reporting. Phase 1 was adding the time to the count of each cigarette. Phase 2 was a agreed upon behavioral contract to have a cap of cigarettes based on a prior measurement of sort of an attainable but lower goal. As we can see, by phase 2, the person has significantly reduced their reported rates of smoking cigarettes per day. Can we all agree on that? Let's assume that the person is not a liar and not fabulating their self-reports because they're paying me each week to do so. So, there's all sorts of problems with this methodology, but this is what we did back in 1998. And this was the basis of what I considered at the time, to my knowledge, some of the first, maybe the first, and to this day, some of the only examples of about as rigorous as you can get applied behavior analysis delivered with zero face-to-face interaction online in a consumer format. Does that make sense to everybody so far? Okay, so I want Dr. Weinberg and Dr. Bill, what are the biggest problems with this format that first pop into your mind? What are the biggest problems with this methodology that, you would have said, looked over my shoulder in 1998 and said, Dave, you're insane, or you're unethical, or this should be unbillable, or you're a criminal? Guys, start from there. What are the biggest problems with, there's a lot of details in what I've talked about, but I am curious, what would you think would be problems disciplinarily, scientifically, in terms of validity, et cetera, with this process? Dr. Weinberg?
Yeah, well, I would have an issue with, how valid the data are. Did you get any IOA going on with this?
Yes.
Would be a
And
question.
unpack that acronym, Doc. IOA, is that inter-observer?
Inter-observer agreement.
Okay, good.
Okay. So an independent observer who can corroborate the self-report. And as we know, the other issue is self-report.
That's right. And of course, Doc, I'm not trying to dispute anything you're saying. You're absolutely positively correct. But however, trying to get IOA would very much complicate the process of offering the service. Would you agree there, Doc?
Yeah. And Dave?
Okay. So who else wants to talk about maybe a similar riff or something else about the problems that you might have said to me back in 1998 that are going on with this process? And I'm asking any presenter and any audience member. Oh, come on, Bill. Come on, Bill. I'm laying this passion project out for everybody to take a whack at. Feel free.
Well, no, the self-report I think is definitely an issue, and I wouldn't know how to get around that. You wouldn't have somebody hanging out in this person's home, double checking their cigarette consumption. So that would be that would be hard to overcome. The other piece is that it looks like during your phases of change, even through startup and through phase one, you have an overall decreasing trend anyway. And so when you moved into phase two, you got rid of a lot of variability. And so to go to phase three,
it became more rule governed. Would you say, Bill?
That would be, well, that'd be hard for me to tell whether exactly rule governed, but it definitely had some bearing in it. You have what sounds like with phase three, it was an unplanned intervention with the crashing of the computer.
Right.
So
natural experiment, Bill.
Exactly. And you capitalized on that, but from there you went and kicked back up again. So the fact that we started with an overall trend through startup baseline phase one and then two with a decreasing trend, we're like, well, it was already coming down anyway over those phases. What do we show so far is my question.
Okay. Joe Catilli, have at it.
Whenever you do a study like this, you always have to worry about the socially appropriate response, especially when you're dealing with people's self-report data.
I can't hear you very well, Joe. You're a little low.
I hope I can present well. I hope people hear me today. The general idea is that people are under social pressure to kind of give the socially appropriate response, which is that I'm showing better. I'm feeling better. I'm doing well. It's kind of the same reason why people cheat on their diet plans when they know no one else is even going to see it. They say I did 98 calories when they put it in. It was obviously 150 calories for what they ate. And so, you get that kind of phenomena that it's actually punishing for them to have to admit that they did not meet their goal. And so self-control data kind of tends to lend itself to that kind of problem. But like you said before, you just got to accept it based on what it's I mean, the thing is, the guy kept coming back, so he felt like he was getting something out of it at least.
Guy, Joe? I've made no
Or
claims to
girl,
the
I
gender
don't
of the
know.
participant.
I don't
There
know.
you go.
I'm assuming their gender, man. I don't know.
There you go again. Okay, so guys, I'm just going to use this less as a presentation for the audience's benefit. Unless, Tim, you're seeing the audience have any questions, I'm not getting any text, and more of a presentation for my benefit. So
some of the
go ahead, Tim.
yeah, the same kind of issues that are being discussed. You hearing me? Okay, about
I am.
the validity of self-reports, the confounding variables.
Mm-hmm.
There was one question about like what was the behavior plan interventions, that kind of thing, and also the trouble with that, like if you have experience trying to get parents to take data or care workers in group homes and things like that, I kind of think that it's that kind of problem. They're away from you. You're not there to pressure them to take data, and so what's really happening as far as when it's done remotely is my reaction to it.
And the word remote is interesting. I want to tangentially speak to some of those issues. My assumption in 98 is that people would not incur these tasks. They would not incur these tasks, A, to pay for them, and then B, to lie. Okay, that was the seat of the pants decision at that time. Second, the word remotely is interesting because anyone who works in BHRS or IBHS will realize that even if we're visiting families or clients once a week, we're still working remotely the rest of the week. Okay. And as someone who does IBHS, full time for a living, I very, very often ask parents and caregivers to count behavior and make a rough and ready assumption, based not just on what they say, but the way they say it and the promptness and quality of what they present, that they are doing so. So to me, the question of working remotely and data validity, of course, is accentuated when you're working 100% remotely, but it's not solved necessarily by working face to face, because to me, it seems virtually impossible in a wide spectrum of behavior analytic situations to get a complete and total virtual record of every emission of a behavior. But I'm sort of, winging it here. Now, if you're interested in how many people, Dr. Weinberg, you mentioned Murray Sidman, correct? Oh, he's left. Okay, probably most of the audience has left too. So I'm happy to cede some of my time if the audience indicates this is not their cup of tea. But one of the things that I also did at about that time was I was the first web designer for Og Lindsley's behavior research company. And I was the website designer for Authors Cooperative. And that was Murray Sidman and the books that he has published, including classics like Tactics of Scientific Research, Coercion and Its Fallout, and a variety of other Authors Cooperative books by Schoenfeld, Chiesa, and others. So what I called it in 98 is online lifestyle modification. And the pitch is that this was not therapy. In fact, one of the slogans that we used at that time is, it's not therapy, it's better. And our idea was that this was education. Okay, this was an educative process that people paid to engage in, and that, long story short, if they wanted to lie and pay money to do so, they were welcome to do that. We felt that that was an acceptable risk to make. Along the way, we did a variety of different behaviors and different clients working 100% remotely, either with Internet Relay Chat or America Online. And even though these terms sound perhaps archaic today, every one of the functions of doing this is the same from 1995 as it is today. We call it a self-study course because the bulk of the intervention process was a collaborative curriculum designed with myself and the person based on self-measurement, based on self-counting of behavior. And each particular person would have a dynamically designed curriculum week by week based on their levels of compliance and their levels of quality at providing their data, all along week by week, paying for that process. There was a registration fee. There was a built-in baseline. There were subsequent weeks of coursework called the self-research phase. And much like, you know, a process of outpatient therapy that would work on telehealth today, people could self-determine the length of their engagement with the process. And so part of the things that we did were some, we feel, innovative ways to make the process of counting behavior not just convenient, but more engaging to people who are working class regular folks. So, Dr. Weinberg, Bill, are you still with us? Do I still have your attention, or should I wrap it up? Good. Dr. Weinberg,
I'm right with you.
what does this look like to you?
A fire sale? Let's see.
Yes, you do see some of the graphic elements. Yes, sir.
I certainly do.
Okay.
All
But
right.
can you tell me the story that a working class person would get by me taking their self-reported data and recycling it back to them in a visual format?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cigs per day. Okay, that's cool.
Cigarettes per day. Can somebody tell me why there's a fire arrow over that dot?
Because they're going to die.
Yes,
They
they're
smoke
at
that much a day.
92. Guys, I want you to tell me what person would lie about smoking 92 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
And this is what I
What
was
if
saying
they're
to
smoking-
myself back
Yeah.
in
What if they're smoking
1998.
110?
Okay. And the process of breaking phases into essentially comic book panes or sort of episodes with the use of professional narration as speech balloons. Hey, Bill, what do you think about that? Crazy or crazy like a fox?
Well, the issue is that we've been taught in our ethics code to make sure that we're not using jargon and that we are be able to communicate our technology in a way that's understandable. And this format with icons and things that kind of speak out leave little room for interpretation any other way. They need to be able to hear your diagnostic interpretation. So I think that there's room for it in a in the type of system that you're doing it with, you know.
Thank you. And of course, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. I'm not the first person to think about comics and behavior analysis. Dick Malott, whoop whoop. Okay, Behavior Daily Press. So that was a real inspiration for me. But it was also simply the process of in 1994, 5, and 6, the wild west feeling of the internet. Okay, and the fact that here was a way to do this process. I wasn't lying. I get the feeling the people I worked with weren't lying. And thanks, Liz. And the idea is that there were people who would put systematic investment behind this. And if they were lying, they were paying to do it. And they were going to significant labor, daily labor, to simulate variability that to a somewhat trained eye would be very, very clear to start to discriminate. I think most people aren't good at simulating the variability of behavioral data. I think you have to be, it's probably easier to report it accurately than it is to fake it. Hey, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Run me through this. What are we measuring per day?
Cigarettes smoked per day.
That's right. And this is the
Okay.
same visualization. This is the same person, Bill,
Okay.
but
And
a longer axis.
Are the same exact range of data on this as on the previous slide?
Correct.
Wow.
Not the same range. This is week 0. We called it week 0, baseline 1, 2, 3.
Okay, 3.
And so this,
Okay.
again,
Then week 4 starts there in 5. Okay.
okay. And again, different variations of a way to illustrate charts
Right.
to make them more, as Og Lindsley might have said, and said to me all the time, plain English, Dave, plain English. Okay. So
yes, and your balloons gave a deference to that. So that's really good.
correct, and the intervention flags, etc. Bill, can you tell us the story of this
Okay,
chart?
well, yeah, it looks like during baseline you had some highly variable times. It was interesting on the previous slide that his high points were on Saturdays.
Correct.
That's a very interesting thing that I would flesh out.
Weekend versus weekday rates.
Now, you decided when to start intervention based on a look at the data, or just it was the next Saturday, let's start it, right?
Both. It
Okay,
was
okay.
I would call it a consultative or collaborative curriculum design process.
Okay, because
Makes sense.
Yep. So luckily you had a rather steady state a baseline here by the end of week 3. You were with really no steady trend, and then you began intervention there at the red line. At that point, you didn't really have a change in level very much at that point of any significance, but you definitely had a decreasing trend that occurred with variability that had come down to a very minor level. By the time we hit week 8 and 9, our variability has definitely decreased. The overall level is down, and the trend flattened out, where we kind of hit a plateau of about 20 to 30 cigarettes a day.
You said it better than I ever could, buddy. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
you.
No, I'm not kidding. So that's my goal for engaging instruction, is to get people talking back to me, not me lecturing. So thank you so much for helping me do that.
Thank you.
I will say this, guys, in terms of methodology, it dawned on me too that self-reporting, obviously, from an academic, philosophic, and in many ways, essentially besides practical, are weak. Okay, it's weak. Just a real show of hands. How many people think
Dave,
this data?
there's a question in the chat. They're asking, were there bursts? Were there 4, 5, and 6 cigarettes?
That is a great question. I could answer that. I could answer that back then, because we had this. Thank you, audience members. So yes, we could determine that way back when, because this was a collaborative Excel spreadsheet emailed back and forth, where designed by myself, where the person would be able to see what the rate is across a day. Thank you, audience member. Hey, Bill or Joe or Doc Weinberg,
Okay.
what is this? What's this column? What's this row 17 about?
Probably looks like how much it cost them to buy that amount of cigarettes in a day.
Yes, and
Like
how much they
savings.
saved every time they reduced.
Yeah.
Economic impact.
Boy,
Economic
cigarettes were
impact.
cheap back then, weren't they?
Well, hence 90 a day.
Yeah,
Plus
nowadays that would
taxes
be
on
like
them back then.
$90 or more.
Yeah, can you imagine? But does anybody, and we're all probably everyone, every speaker and most of the audience are far more adept behavior analysts than I am and care to be. Does anyone here feel that the data they're seeing in this chart looks fake?
I'd say no.
Okay. I suspect not either. So this is an example of some of the process by which.
Was there some concern that he never got to, or she never got to zero rates? I don't know if it was a he or she.
Yes, of course. Of course, there was concern about that. And there was discussion and a specific avoidance of setting zero as a goal. This was called smoking control, folks, not smoking cessation. Okay, because the feeling was if you can demonstrate smoking control, if you can demonstrate it, you are on your pathway to cessation.
So sort of a harm reduction model. Just cut down how much you're smoking rather than stop smoking.
Well, as you can imagine, harm reduction is particularly amplified when you go from 90 a week. And Bill, note that the peaks on weekends continue.
Yes.
The peaks on weekends continue, but their level is significantly reduced. How much healthier is this person based on the fact that there was never a goal to stop, but there was an ongoing goal to reduce as much as possible.
Right. I think any physician would tell you that he automatically probably added a few years to his life just in that alone.
And a few bucks to his or her pocket.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Hey, more data-based comics. Okay. This was the same person, but arranging the comics, the panes in a different order. And this was experimental education, and some of it was more effective, and some of it was less effective with people.
I'd like to actually see on your like number 6 there, your lowest ever Monday. I wonder how much of this would actually act as a reinforcer if we could actually prove it out somehow. But that's, if he's being reinforced for a decreasing overall trend.
Yes, had we been, well, you're probably too young you probably weren't born then, but yeah, I'd probably have tenure if I'd had good advice like that, Bill.
Okay.
So most of you can see what's coming up next. And Tim, how am I on time?
Let's see. You got about like 10 more minutes or so.
Okay. All right.
Liz had asked harm reduction in psych terms.
Yeah. And someone texted, one audience member said there's too much response effort for the data to be invalid. Who said that? That person's right up my alley. There is too much response effort for the data to be invalid. It's easier to tell the truth than to fake it. That was my hunch way back then. The seat of the pants modality that I was working in.
Yeah, that's like if you have enough data there and enough consistency or a certain pattern, you could surmise that they're probably telling the truth.
So here is the same person's data. Give me 1 second. These are all the same person. One, different visualization of how they tracked and reported numbers across the hours of the day, different visualization, and of course, the standard acceleration chart, which was available electronically back in 1998. Okay, guess what users' reaction to seeing their data in this format was? Anybody care to, guess what this person preferred standard acceleration charts versus comic book layouts? Anyone?
They probably preferred the comic book layout.
They did, but behavior analysis. So again, this is a different person, different person, same cigarette smoke per day. Okay. And I'm gonna gloss through some of this. Tim, I believe that this material in its entirety is available to every audience member. And I encourage you to text, email, or contact me. But you can see some of the processes. And also, this was an experimental education process in which my behavior was shaped by working with different people and over time to try to increase clarity. Chances are this is a little too verbose, but live and learn. Now, here is the same person in the standard acceleration chart. Yeah, people didn't like this. No offense, they didn't like it. I could see probably technical folks, if we were chart sharing between technical people, absolutely. Between working class, paying customers, nah. Okay. Okay. Joe, we did reach zero with some customers. And this is a little bit of what that looks like. You can see that their rate was relatively low to begin with. Variation was particularly low, no huge spikes. They were able to not only hit zero, but demonstrate zero. Now, I do want to talk about methodology just a bit, because in later cases, I did attempt, in almost no cases was I able to conveniently have someone also inspect the person's behavior. In no case was I able to offer a customer, or were they able to provide a convenient other observer so that we could get inter-observer agreement. But what other people did do was try to enhance validity by providing additional evidence, like emailed photos of baggies of cigarette butts. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. If you're measuring the number of cigarettes you smoke, and you're smoking 20 a week, and then you email me a photo of those 20 cigarettes in a baggie, that's a lot of response effort. That's a lot of response effort. Okay. So thanks for the comments. I do see that people, we did have a contract as an intervention to cap the number commenter. We did have that. That's why I mentioned rule governed behavior. And at this time, I have more stuff to talk about my later career in applying skills as a behavior analyst to designing online programs, and also to my dissertation, where some of you may be familiar in higher education with learning management systems and the Blackboard learning management system. I was lucky enough to be able to use for my dissertation the server data of a institution, Temple University. Dr. Weinberg, you're familiar, I'm sure, where we discovered that from the standpoint of innovation diffusion, Temple University was an academic organization that on a certain day offered no Blackboard online courses. And the next day, they turned a switch and allowed every organizational employee to create their own Blackboard online course. Being part of the team administratively that helped that happen, I was able to conceptualize that as essentially a digital cumulative recorder of innovation across a large organization. So it brought together literature in innovation diffusion, but also a unique situation where you have a web server system literally recording every response of thousands of humans in a large organization saying, yes, I want this. And the this that they want are online courses. And I was lucky enough to work with the West Virginia dissertation team to parlay this into a dissertation. And this is Bill still with us? Dr. Weinberg? This sure looks like a cumulative record, doesn't it, sir?
It does.
Sure does.
It is. It is a cumulative record of every adoption of every online course at Temple University from March 25th, 1999 to August 10th, 2001, where I figure, hey, I got enough data, so let's turn this off.
Oh,
Okay? A digital cumulative recorder, sir. And we were able to compare different kinds and ways of adopting an online course. Task heavy versus task light. On your left, you see the Blackboard learning management system cumulative record. On the right, you will see the pre-existing online learning program cumulative record of faculty adoption.
wow.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Weinberg. Yeah, wow. Okay, that's what we said. And with further analysis, we were able to break out the respective cumulative records of different organizations within the Temple University system. So the Fox School of Business, Liberal Arts, College of Science and Technology, to the point where essentially this was the entire digital population, not a statistical sample. Does that make sense to everyone? We're working with the entire digital population of an innovation. And that dissertation was called Rates of Adoption in a University Course Management System. I think I'm about out of time, or if I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm ready to shut up and cede time to anybody who wants to talk or go to the next person. But I do want to thank, real briefly, give me 1 minute, okay? So this is what I do now. Do you see these folks? These are people that I have never met face to face. And this is the telehealth intervention in intensive behavioral health services. He's doing well. He's doing well. And I think the biggest shot in the arm to e-haviorism is the telehealth revolution brought on by none other than a global pandemic. Guys, let's face it, behavior analysis didn't have a damn thing to do with it. Okay, it took a global pandemic to push these agencies. That's why Dr. Weinberg's presentation was so awesome, because it shows you the incredibly bad thinking behind some of these services. And that includes the fact that these agencies, before COVID-19 and the respective governors turned on their emergency orders, it was unethical and unbillable to work with any family without seeing them face to face. The next day it was mandatory. That is what a global pandemic has shoved the behavioral folks, such as they are in IBHS, BHRS, so-called wraparound, into simple 21st century telework. And if it hadn't been for that global pandemic, it never would have happened. But I will say this, it is happening. And here's what my boss, Joe Cotilli, looks like when telehealth isn't behavioral. And here's what he looks like when telehealth is behavioral. Isn't that neat? Look, I made a meme.
His beard all of a sudden gets black? Is that what happens?
Yeah, he gets very upset when telehealth isn't behavioral. And let me tell you, he's upset a lot. But we are going to make telehealth behavioral a little place that we like to call Behavior Analysis and Therapy Partners, BATP, as my wife calls it. I want to thank Tim Templin for putting me on the team because this was not a presentation that was going to be behavior analysis as usual. Tim was entrepreneurial and comfortable enough to deal with that. Every presenter and most of the audience are better behavior analysts than I will ever be. But I encourage you to text, email, or contact me if you like what you heard. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody today.
Thank you, Dave. And I will certainly classify this as maybe not new, but novel. It's a needed area. So yeah, it was the biggest environmental change, the pandemic, that helped make it happen.